The underlined portion of the question begins after the main clause. The main clause states that these companies were free to charge whatever they want, and this is followed by a comma and a present participle modifier, needing no approval from these regulators before raising rates. So what does a present participle modifier do? Remember that it modifies the whole clause in front of it while applying to the subject these insurance companies. So they were free to charge because these companies need no approval from regulators before raising rates. So the construction and the logic of A seems just fine. We can hold on to that. Now in B, we have a pronoun it, and this is a singular pronoun. But in the non-underlined portion, the noun that the it is logically referring to is plural. So instead of it, it should have been they. So B goes off because of pronoun number mismatch. Now in C, we have and needing no approval. Now, of course, and is a trigger for the concept of parallelism. So we just need to see whether the two entities connected by this and are parallelly constructed. So after the and, we have this needing no approval in the present participle form. But if we notice the non-underlined portion, we have the companies were free to charge. So if I use the conjunction and here, after the and, this should have rather read and needed no approval. So if it said and needed no approval, then the two verbs that would have been parallel are the insurance companies were free and needed no approval. So the were free and needed would be two verbs that apply to the main subject, the insurance companies itself. So C breaks the parallelism, C goes off. Now D and E have the with construction after the comma. I have explained the appropriate usage of the with construction in the video explanation for question 783. I'll throw a link to this question in the description below and you can check exactly how that is to be used. So most of the times these with constructions are seen as inappropriate by the GMAT because the main subject of the clause here is these insurance companies, and the subject used is not acting as any kind of descriptor for these insurance companies. It rather is talking about approval, which is a completely different entity. So if these with modifiers are not acting as descriptors for the subjects of the previous clause, then they are not usually appropriate. As I said before, please refer to the explanation in 783 to get a better grasp of this. So D and E can be eliminated if we do understand the inappropriate usage of the with modifier here, but I can also point out other things that are erroneous with these choices. Notice that in D, we have that the approval needed by regulators. And in other choices, we have approval needed from the regulators. So we can notice that it's a prepositional difference. So if I say that it is the approval from the regulators, then it is the regulators who are giving the approval to these insurance companies. But if the preposition used is by, then the logic becomes that these regulators need the approval, that the approval is needed by the regulators. And that makes no logical sense. D goes off. And notice how in E, we have this prepositional phrase, the raising of rates, whereas A puts it in a very straightforward fashion as before raising rates. So when you compare these two, it becomes obvious that raising rates is a very straightforward construction, but let me give you examples to relate to this better. Look at these two constructions. He drinks coffee before studying his books, and he drinks coffee before the studying of his books. So when we put it across as studying his books, it becomes very obvious that he drinks coffee before he studies. But if we say he drinks coffee before the studying refers to an action, but it does not logically indicate that it is an action performed by him. So it is very understandable that the first construction is the very straightforward and appropriate construction. E goes off. Our right answer choice is A itself.